In the first batch of supplementary demands for grants for FY24, the Union Finance Ministry has requested the Parliament's approval for an additional gross spending of almost 1.29 trillion rupees. This spending involves a net cash outgo of 58,378 crore rupees in FY24, while the rest will be used from the almost 71,000 crore rupees of savings and receipts of the government coffers. In the first supplementary demands for grants in FY23, the government had sought approval for gross additional expenditure of nearly 4.36 trillion rupees, with a net cash outgo of 3.25 trillion rupees. However, in FY22, despite the grants being higher than this fiscal, the net cash outgo was much lower, at 23,674 crore rupees. The higher cash outgo for FY24 as compared to FY22 can be attributed to the increase in the food and fertilizer subsidy bill. The Finance Ministry has said that the additional expenditure on rural employment scheme and public sector companies will be met through the savings and receipts and recoveries. The additional spending demands, which will be met through the net cash outgo, are primarily for fertilizer, which will be 13,351 crore rupees, food subsidies at 10,396 crore rupees, the Guarantee Redemption Fund at 9,014 crore rupees, and defense spending at 5,626 crore rupees. The document presented in the Lok Sabha showed that more funds for the Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme will be met through savings, recovery, and receipts. The recapitalization of regional rural banks and fund infusion in various public sector insurance companies, as well as LPG subsidies, will also be met through the savings and receipts. In the FY24 budget, the government had set a fiscal deficit target of 5.9% of GDP, aiming to bring it down from 6.9% in FY23. During the first 7 months of the financial year, the government had used only 45% of its fiscal deficit target of 17.9 trillion rupees. So, will this additional spending affect the government's fiscal deficit target plans?
The impact of additional supplementary demands on the overall public finances would be minimal, for a simple reason that the last budget's assessment on that overall revenues as well as the tax base in terms of nominal GDP growth appears to be lower than what actually it could be. So the recent trends in both nominal GDP growth as well as the tax mobilization suggest that the additional demand for grants can be covered by that excess revenue that government may mobilize due to widening of tax base. And also one more thing is that it appears that even the tax buoyancy also would be much higher than what they assumed in the union budget for the current year.
With the GDP growing at 7.7% in April to September, the first half of FY24, the government is confident of meeting the fiscal deficit target with robust tax collections. Economists believe that due to better tax collections, the impact of this additional spending can be easily contained. Till October 2023, the net tax revenue stood at 13 trillion rupees, which was 55.9% of the total budget estimate. The total non-tax revenue was 2.6 trillion rupees, which is more than 88% of the budget estimate for the full fiscal year. But will the supplementary demand squeeze the government finances?
Our view is that expenditure overall is going to be within the budgeted level. And on the revenue side, there are many positives and negatives. The positives are that the dividend transfer from the RBI is higher than budgeted. Direct tax revenues are likely to be higher than budgeted. Negatives are customs duty, excise duty, and disinvestment are likely to fall short of the budget estimate. So on balance, we feel that the receipt side is actually balanced. And that's what we feel for the expenditure side as well right now. On CapEx specifically, there is actually a huge headroom for spending to be completed in H2. And that is something that we feel would be difficult if the Model Code of Conduct is announced sometime in the next quarter. And therefore, we don't think that there is a material risk of the fiscal deficit being breached in absolute terms in FY24, in spite of the fact that we strongly feel that GDP growth is going to slow down.
Economists believe that the government's proposal to seek additional spending is unlikely to have major implications on its finances and future plans. But they caution that the robust GDP growth witnessed in the first half of FY24 may not sustain in the second half, mainly due to the upcoming 2024 general elections, global slowdown, and dilution of pent-up demand.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.
He's making plans for an early retirement. Business Standard.